In the '85 draft, when I was drafted by the Bills, I knew a couple years prior to that they drafted this guy, Jim Kelly, but wasn't worried about him because he was playing in the USFL. But I remember my good friend Boomer Esiason invited me to play in his charity golf tournament. And when I went to Boomer's house, who comes walking out but Jim Kelly? And naturally during that time, I'm asking him, hey, are you ever thinking you're coming to the Bills? And he says an emphatic, Frank, I promise you, I will never play for the Buffalo Bills.
You're going to be a football player when you grow up?
Today is the best day of your life. Believe
Give
it.
me 18 years of daylight. That's all right.
Greatest leader I've ever known.
What a ride it's been.
In Buffalo, we love Jim Kelly!
1990, it's early in the season. We're playing the Arizona Cardinals. So we come out, and it is the absolute first series of the game. We got the ball coming out of the tunnel end. Jim drops back. He's looking to his left, and one of the Cardinals comes off the right side, Jim's right side, and bam! Gives him a big shot. Jim's on his back, right in the pocket. The ball comes loose. It's a fumble. Their guy scoops it up and starts to run. Jim sees what's happening. He gets up, runs after the guy. It ticked him off. So he got hit in the mouth, and we watched it on film the next day. And Jim ran him down. He couldn't help it. You know, they say a lot about that 1983 class of quarterbacks. You pick any quarterback in league history, not one of them would do that. That's the kind of guy he was.
No matter how hard the hit,
After he tackled the quarterback, he's giving them business down there. That's a 15-yard penalty.
or devastating the loss,
And so another season and another Super Bowl opportunity and another Super Bowl loss.
Jim Kelly always responded the same way, by getting up.
I grew up with that phrase, get up, you'll be all right. You talk to my daughters, well, the first thing is they learn when they were little. Get up, you'll be all right.
Oh, it's definitely
never
true.
Give up. Like, doesn't matter for her, she just get up. like walk it off. Like that's
Mom would come over and be like, are you okay? Dad's like, she just fell, she's
Come on,
fine,
be
I've
Kelly
got
tough.
it. Be Kelly tough. Oh, since we
Always.
were little.
Yeah, you're gonna get hit, but you gotta get back up and play. That's what I learned growing up in a family of 6 boys. My dad, you get knocked down, get your butt up.
I remember Ray got a BB gun, and it was, hey, Dan, I'll give you a count of 10 to get running. He says, I'm telling you, you better go. I took off running through the yard. He shoots me in the back. I come in crying to Mom. Mom goes, quit your crying.
Growing up in the small western Pennsylvania town of East Brady, getting up was never a question. And for the 4th oldest Kelly, who earned all-state honors as his high school's quarterback, neither was his college of choice.
I really wanted to go to Penn State. Of course, where I'm from, either Pitt or Penn State, and I always was a Nittany Lion fan. And thought I was gonna be the quarterback there. And unfortunately, Coach Paterno told me, he said, we've already signed the 2 quarterbacks that we were going for, but we'll give you a full ride as a linebacker. And I'm like, what? And then when I called you, I said, Pat, Coach Paterno told me that they would want me as a linebacker. What do you think I should do? And Pat said, well, the only thing I can tell you, brother, is before you board those charter flights before the games, the flight attendants never want to know who the linebackers are. They always want to know, which one's the quarterback? I go, that's all I need to hear, brother. Talk to you later. I'm a quarterback.
It was about that quick.
In search of a school that wanted his arm, the kid from East Brady flew south.
I went to the University of Richmond on a recruiting trip, went to the University of Tennessee, but it came down to I landed in Miami and I saw the palm trees, ate steak and lobster, which I've never had before.
When people come to Miami Beach, everything changes.
Well, the beach scene, the pretty girls, yeah, I can go on and on and on.
On the football field, however, Miami wasn't turning any heads. A decade's worth of poor play and financial problems had the entire football program in jeopardy. And 1 year after Kelly's arrival in 1978, the Hurricanes hired a new coach.
They couldn't beat Tom Thumb with a broadaxe, and they had no quarterback. So I came in there and started reconnoitering and seeing what I had. And that's when I met Jim, and he was gregarious, outgoing, showed a lot of leadership. I watched him throw a little bit. Damn, he's got a good arm. And I thought, boy, this might be the guy.
As a redshirt freshman, Kelly served as a backup and played sparingly through the first half of the 1979 season.
And he did quite well. And we kept going along like that until the big game to go up to Penn State and play the Nittany Lions.
I remember Coach Snellenberger pull me aside at the pregame meal and tell me that I was starting that day. And the first thing I did was I excused myself and I went and threw up for about 20 minutes.
And I said, what the hell is wrong with you, Jim? He said, well, Coach, don't worry. I did that before every high school game I played in. So I said, hell, let's go.
I remember thinking, I'm playing against a coach that said I wasn't good enough to play for them.
Jim Kelly, quick drop, cross at the corner of the end zone. Jordan's got it for a touchdown.
They were up there, fat cats, waiting to butcher up on us, and I had this secret weapon that was raised up there with them, and they knew him better than I knew him.
And Jim Kelly is slicing up the Lions like a noted surgeon.
And it was like a hand grenade went off in the middle of the field, and they were caught in the shrapnel.
Here's Kelly into the middle. It is caught for a touchdown. So the Hurricanes come up with one of the great victories in the school's history.
And from then on, it was just a matter of saying, sick 'em, go get 'em.
By 1982, Jim Kelly had turned the tide in South Beach.
Kelly throwing out of the end zone and laid it in there perfectly to him.
The once fledgling Miami program was ranked among the nation's best, and the Hurricanes quarterback had his eye on college football's highest honor.
Heisman Trophy, that's just a dream for anybody to even dream about. Senior year, it was all going great. And I remember the old scramble, if you want to call it that.
Jim Kelly's Heisman Trophy chances went down the drain when a scramble against Virginia Tech ended with him going one way and his right shoulder going another.
Brought him down and Kelly's hurt.
What I probably should have done was slide, but, my mind, being an athlete, so maybe if I cut back, I might be able to score. Oh, I planted that foot, I cut back, and I got blindsided. And that guy put me into the turf, he buried me, and I totally blew out my right arm. And it even got worse when I came out of surgery, and a doctor told me, he said, your shoulder's a lot worse than we thought it was. We had to insert 3 metal rods in your right arm, and you may never get your range of motion back. And that's the start of this roller coaster ride of my life, not knowing that that was going to be one of many, many things that were going to happen in my life, and I was going to be tested the whole way.
We finished the season, and he rehabbed like no man I've ever seen.
The comeback trail is never easy. So why put yourself through it? Well, if you're Jim Kelly, then you're talking about first-round NFL draft material.
I said, you just keep working, and don't let anybody see you. Whenever you're ready, let me know.
He set the date. He invited everybody.
With dozens of pro scouts, coaches, and a couple of NFL general managers looking on. Yes, sir, Jim Kelly can still chunk the pigskin.
He goes out there and threw the ball better than he ever threw it in any game he's ever played in.
I remember because I was there. You had a San Diego Chargers.
Yep, I saw that. That was a big old ad, I guess.
Yeah, it was called Throw for the Dough.
It was a renaissance. It was God breathing life back into the warrior.
A couple of the coaches that were there, they only saw him throw like 4 passes, and they said, well, where are you going? He said, I've seen enough. He's ready to go.
He has a high rating depending on the rehabilitation of the arm, and it was evident today that the arm is okay, so I'm sure that he's going to have a high rating going into the draft.
My agent looked at me, he goes, is there anywhere you don't want to play? I go, oh yeah, I don't want to play for Green Bay, I don't want to play for Minnesota, and I sure don't want to play for the Buffalo Bills.
And who could blame him? I mean, he knew what he'd be walking into here. It was an awful team. It was an awful offensive line. And Buffalo was notoriously cheap when it came to paying players.
Next up, Buffalo.
And Pete Rozelle gets up and he said, the Buffalo Bills select with the 12th pick in the first round.
Tight end, Tony Hunter from Notre Dame.
Yeah, when I did that, I hit Mom. I felt so bad for her, and I'm thinking, but I'm not going to Buffalo. And then my agent saying, relax, they also have the 14th pick. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Quarterback, Jim Kelly, Miami of Florida.
Jim Kelly. I cried. I didn't literally cry. Inside I was, but outside, you know, you had to say, I'm happy to be drafted by the Bills and all these great things you have to say. I lied.
I just want to thank the Buffalo Bills for having the interest in picking me, and I'm just grateful to being part of the Buffalo Bills organization.
Every single thing I said was a lie. I was so happy we were going to turn that program around.
The Bills were a bungling franchise, and they have Jim Kelly in the building to get him signed to his rookie contract. And somehow, the secretary for the acting general manager,
Buffalo Bills,
she puts through a phone call from Bruce Allen, who at the time was with the Chicago Blitz representing the USFL.
The upstart Spring Football League had drafted Kelly 4 months earlier.
I had always thought Jim would be the perfect guy for our league because of his charisma, because of his personality. His agent got on the line and I said, what's your final deal going to be? And he told me the dollars, and I said, oh, don't sign that.
Don't sign anything. We get an offer he can't refuse. And that offer was he can play for any team he wants in the USFL. You can pick it.
And the perfect opportunity came up when Houston became an expansion team. And Jerry Argovitz was the owner of the team.
So I became a salesman. I sold him on the Astrodome. I sold him on Houston.
And the Houston Gamblers landed a glamour-type quarterback, Miami's Jim Kelly, losing out in the high-stakes bidding, the NFL Buffalo Bills.
For me, was really throwing the football 40, 50 times a game, playing in the dome, no wind. It was perfect.
In his rookie year, Kelly was named league MVP and set the professional single-season record with 44 touchdown passes.
The best thing that happened to Jim was going to the United States Football League and putting up these crazy video game numbers and establishing himself as this quarterback who could make plays on the move, had this big arm, and he had the swagger. He had the whole package of somebody that you pictured as being a great quarterback for your team.
I mean, lived in Houston and, you know, making the money I did, my brothers living with me and having the time of my life, to be honest with you.
Despite their hot hand at quarterback, the Gamblers couldn't outdraw the NFL's Houston Oilers. And after just 2 seasons, the franchise merged with Donald Trump's New Jersey Generals.
And ultimately, we had on the team Herschel Walker and Jim Kelly.
Jim is a quarterback that perhaps they're saying is one of the greatest of all time and potentially one of the greatest of all time.
And they almost made it.
Before Kelly ever took the field as a general, the USFL folded in August 1986, leaving the prized quarterback without a team.
Do you feel then that it was the right decision for you to come to the USFL rather than the NFL?
Oh, very much so. People in Houston treat me very well. I probably can go on days and days talk about why I picked USFL or the NFL. Would you rather be in Houston or Buffalo? I'll stop there.
Following the collapse of the USFL, the Buffalo Bills still own Jim Kelly's NFL rights. But in the summer of 1986, the former Houston Gambler had one last hand to play.
NFL rights to these men run out after 4 years. Kelly would, should he sit out this fall, become a free agent in February.
The Raiders were one of the teams I wanted to play for. Steelers was another one. And if there's an opportunity for me to play for either or, I was all ears.
He's insistent that he's not ever going to play for the Bills, but in his toughness and in his stubbornness, he met his match in Bill Polian.
I went down and we met and said, look, let's talk about the kind of football team we're building. We've drafted Bruce Smith with you in mind, a cornerstone on defense. You'll be the cornerstone on offense. We've got Andre Reed. We got a really good and growing offensive line. And I think we bonded. He was, at the end of it, he said, okay, let's see if we can't do a contract. There were some trade offers, and Mr. Wilson was emphatic. He said, no, we're going to sign Jim Kelly. And I remember distinctly saying to him, it'll be the biggest contract in the history of pro football, and that really wasn't like Mr. Wilson.
Did you have a bottom line that you gave them? You say, don't go any higher than this?
Yeah, we had a bottom line, and we went higher.
The money factor was definitely a big reason. It was something I couldn't turn down, but I had to really think what Jim Kelly wanted to do, and I wanted to play football, and it came down to that, period.
Moments ago, he arrived, Jim Kelly, along with Ralph Wilson, now holding up the number 12 jersey, which he's going to be wearing for the Buffalo Bills.
What kind of reception did you think that you'd get from the city?
I wasn't sure. But as I was picked up and we were driving to the hotel where they were doing the press conference, the people over the overpasses on the thruway and all the signs and all positive.
You felt as if a Messiah was coming to town.
When Kelly accepted a Bills jersey, he became the building block of a franchise that has won just 4 games in the past 2 years. Now all he has to do for $1.5 million a year is turn the Bills into champions.
Never in the history of the NFL has a player walked out of a tunnel with more, forget about pressure, expectation placed on him.
Jim Kelly's the best thing that happened to Buffalo Bills! Yeah!
I mean, when you saw a sign that said Kelly is God, he stopped and said, okay, this is really big.
You know what? You do reminisce, you look around, and the stadium is pretty much the same, some changes.
Was there a sign like that?
Oh my! I do remember that one. Oh my! Look at that! Yeah.
Oh my goodness!
You were the one that did this?
Yes, I did.
Oh my! You must have been a young kid back then.
Yes, you too.
Yes, I was, but oh my. How did you get the idea to write those words?
Well, in college, one of my good friends would put a banner up at Shea Stadium for Richard Todd with the Jets. And I promised him the day you signed with the Bills that I was going to go to the first game and I was going to put up a Kelly as God. Your father was hit so much that day, but he kept on getting up, and it was just a great thing to see that day.
I remember playing in that game, and Red Cashin was the referee, and he had called a simple penalty. I turned to him, I said, Red, how can you call that? And Kelly turned to me and he says, oh, first name basis, huh? So anyway, we're on the goal line, and I'm saying to myself, what a time for a 15-yard penalty. They're gonna move the ball another 3 inches. Well, I came off the ball as soon as he started his count, and I knocked him, head over tail about 10 yards back. I said, oh, sorry, Jim.
Joe Klecko and company just start beating the living daylights out of him. But for Buffalo fans, they saw that Jim had this fighter in him. They saw that Jim would take the hit and be just like them, bounce right back up.
Kelly backing up, falls down, gets up, rolls right, hooks, fakes once. Touchdown! Unbelievable! What a fantastic play by Jim Kelly.
What I remember the most is thinking, this guy's legit. We're going to win a lot of games.
It was like a breath of fresh air because now you had a guy that was a young gunslinger that could throw the ball all over the yard. Didn't know a whole lot about him. Come to find out, we were made up pretty similar. I call him Heathcliff. He's a cat that thinks he's a dog. He's a quarterback that thinks he's a linebacker on the field.
Kelly's first season with the Bills yielded just 4 wins. But what it lacked on the scoreboard it made up for in spirit.
I think he just had a confidence that you don't see. And Jim really set the tone for the mentality of the team.
He was cocky, he had that strut in there walk about him.
After those rough years in the mid-'80s, we needed that kind of belief, that kind of confidence.
Marv always had this thing, he said, leadership isn't getting people to fall in line behind you, it's getting people to join you. Everybody wanted to join Jim.
For those who did, one play in particular proved they had made the right choice.
The play that jumps out first at me when I look at Jim was down in Miami, 1989. 2 minutes to go on an awfully, awfully hot day, and we went right down the field.
We're down by 4. Very late, we took it down to about their 2-yard line.
And literally, this is a scene out of The Longest Yard.
Well, with 2 seconds left to go, it's down to this. Touchdown wins it. Anything short of that, Miami's got it.
As the story goes, I think it's true, he called a pass in the huddle, didn't tell anybody he was going to run it.
He looks around, he starts scrambling and running, and then he makes a move for the goal line, just like in the movies. I mean, this is crazy.
Jim was not known for being fleet of foot.
It almost took like it was 5 minutes for him to run 3 yards.
Last play of the game, back to throw, and he's going to run, and he dives for the touchdown. He dove for the touchdown. Jim Kelly is being mobbed. The game is over. The Bills have won it.
The entire bench empty. I was afraid he was going to get suffocated at the bottom of the pile. But that was the one where we as a team really began to believe that we could win it all. And he was the catalyst.
So this is January 1987's edition of Football Digest, Jim Kelly, Buffalo's sling and savior. And I think that this passage is perfect for today. It says, "I cried when I was drafted by Buffalo," Kelly said. "You can't be a great quarterback in snow and 30-mile-per-hour winds." But you were a great quarterback with snow and 30-mile-an-hour winds.
Jim Kelly always had the ability to thrive as Buffalo's quarterback. But at the end of the 1989 season, his unique skill set found its ideal scheme.
It just seemed like every time we got in a 2-minute mode, we were unstoppable. And Jim was unstoppable.
Kelly throws, touchdown.
In the AFC divisional playoff, the Bills had the Browns on their heels with a no-huddle offense late in the game.
Bud Carson is very unhappy with his defense right at this moment.
Even though it would end in heartbreak, it would end with a drop pass basically by Ronnie Harmon in the end zone. There was a sense, this really wasn't an ending to anything. This was a beginning.
And it was really at the end of that game that led to an off-season discussion of, why don't we do this all the time? I mean, why not?
The following season, that's exactly what they did.
It's a no-huddle offense right away as Jim Kelly wants them to get up to the line of scrimmage.
The no-huddle, hurry-up approach became the Bills' offensive philosophy, and the K-gun was born.
And everybody thinks it was K-gun because of Jim Kelly.
No, it was a killer, Keith McKellar.
Kelly squeezes one into McKellar.
He was a difference maker. He's a tight end that could go deep.
It's McKellar again.
We found that personnel package worked really well going fast. And man, we started steamrolling people.
The best part about it, and the reason I'm in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, is Coach Levy put his job security on the line. He let me call the plays.
This allows Kelly to call his own game, really.
This could be the year of Jim Kelly. It really could be.
He had a keen awareness of where he could strike. And there was a time when we were running it really well. Every 16 seconds, we were running a play. Not on the game clock, in real time.
Hurry it up, hurry it up, hurry it up, hurry. You better hurry.
It almost didn't matter what play we called. We'd go into a game and run 20 or 25 plays and just run them over and over again. It didn't matter. Jim was just picking them apart.
And then the Eagles come in town, and they had some guys. Reggie White, Jerome, Seth Joyner, I mean, they had some dudes. They brought pressure hard early on. And Marv said the next day, he goes, it was 24-0, I didn't even put my headset on. I mean, we crushed them.
If the Buffalo Bills are going to be this impressive on offense the entire football season, AFC beware.
With Kelly on the trigger, the K-Gun carried the Bills to the playoffs. And in the snow and wind he once actively avoided, the former Miami Hurricane only picked up speed.
When you do play after play after play, quick, those big guys on the other side of the ball, they get tired. And that's when we're at our best. I remember it was the AFC Championship game against the Raiders.
And the Bills are getting that ball in play a lot quicker than people expected.
Howie Long yelling at me to slow it down. Come on, man, slow this thing down.
Howie Long and Scott Davis are trying so hard to get to Kelly.
And Ken says, speed it up, speed it up.
Buffalo's relentless offense earned the Bills their first ever Super Bowl berth. Still, it was a home game. And for the Bills, that always meant one thing.
That was a very simple answer. You go over to Jim Kelly's house.
Jimmy, let me ask you one final question. There's a rumor going around that the hottest disco in all of Buffalo is right in your basement.
Yeah, I have a bar in my, downstairs in my basement. It's called Kelly's Irish Pub.
He was the man. He was the man of this town.
Everyone knows that Jim knew how to have a good time, and Jim threw a good party. And there were some good celebrations at Jim's house. Let's just put it that way.
I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, I do.
No, I don't, really. No.
Right.
No, I don't have any stories.
I can't say everything we did after those home games.
One story that did emerge from Kelly's basement is how he met his future wife.
He had these parties at his house, and I knew a friend who knew a friend who knew a friend who knew Jim.
I looked and I go, oh my. And bright green eyes, she had a baseball hat on, jeans, boots on, and I'm like, she cannot be from Buffalo because I have not seen her.
And then eventually he comes up to me and he says, so, do you want to go outside and get some fresh air? And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I'm not going to do what every other girl in this room probably would do, so I'm going to do the exact opposite. And I said, no, I'm good, thanks so much.
And I said, how do I get a hold of you? And she goes, you don't, but thank you very much for inviting me. She turns and walks away, and I'm like, what?
We left, and he found out where I worked. He got the number, and he called me at work not too long after that.
Unfortunately, persistence wasn't enough when it came to courting the Lombardi Trophy.
On the way, it's long enough, and it is no good.
Losing that Super Bowl at 25 was a crusher. But Marv said it in a team meeting, coming up short or failure doesn't discourage you guys. It pisses you off. That's Jim. In Minnesota, we were down double digits.
And it's frightening when you look back on it. Jim was concussed and was out of it.
And he didn't want to come out of that game. And looking back on it in today's environment, you can say, well, that's what, everything that was wrong with the NFL back then. It might have been something that was wrong with the NFL, but there was nothing wrong with Jim Kelly. That's what made him great. That's what makes him great, even today.
And then going to the third one in Pasadena, I just remember playing a little over a quarter, blowing my knee out, and how sad that was, and how I didn't want to let my teammates down, but injuries do that.
Somebody's got to win, somebody's got to lose, but you always think, why do we deserve to lose the way we did today? There's reasons for everything, and all the things I've been through, and all the good times, the bad times, it always made me the man I am today. But back then, I even looked up one time and said, Lord, I know I've done screwed up a few times in my life, but really? All of this? But I said that, and he was not done with me yet.
I just have one thing to say. Who is your biggest critic after a game?
Well, that's really hard. We all going to point at him? 1, 2, 3. I didn't do a dang thing. I mean, I remember playing against the Steelers. I threw 6 touchdown passes, the most I've ever thrown. Ray goes, what were you looking on that one interception you threw? I go, bro, I had 6 touchdowns. Yeah, but you threw that one pick. Man, I could have read that. I read that from the stands. I'm like,
And you know what?
You got to be kidding me.
That's when I really said to myself, you know what? You're a little rough on the kid.
Hey, he's the best. You got it.
Jim Kelly could always count on family to lift his spirits. The year following his 4th straight Super Bowl loss was no exception.
I found out that I was pregnant with our first child. I was living with Jim at the time.
I was excited. Even though we weren't married, I always dreamt about playing catch out in the backyard, going fishing and hunting and things that I always wanted to do. And I dreamt about coaching my son.
Oh, Jim wanted a boy. Oh, yeah, Jim wanted a boy. He comes from a family of 6 boys, and all of his brothers have boys. So the pressure's on me, right? We found out that it was a girl, and he was excited, of course, but because all of his brothers had boys, that was his heart's desire.
As Jim Kelly's family life started to grow, his football life began to show signs of finality.
95, 96 years, you can see the body was starting to tear down. And, you know, it was upsetting to me because, you know, he was my 12. You know, he was my GOAT.
His last game against Jacksonville in that playoff game, his last play was being knocked unconscious.
And Jim Kelly trying to make something happen. He fumbled. Beasley has it.
I sustained enough concussions to know that I want to be able to have a quality of life after I'm done playing. And I knew that you can only be tough so much, but you got to be smart too. As you might imagine, this hasn't been easy. I've had to make one of the most difficult decisions of my life.
I remember standing there next to my husband, who's tearful, who is having a very difficult time sharing his heart for the game and that he's walking away from it.
And as you can see, I have another child on the way within probably 2 weeks, hopefully.
And here I am, knowing what I knew at the time, which was that we were going to have a son, and that I had not told Jim. I found out at one of the sonogram appointments, and Jim didn't go, and so I found out, and I kept it a secret. And then 2 weeks later, 2 weeks after Jim retires, Jim's birthday, my water breaks, and I know it's coming.
I was the happiest father in the world. I mean, on your birthday, Valentine's Day, seriously? A boy? And then, of course, you know, one of the first people I called was Thurman, because Thurman, I think at the time, had 2 or 3 girls.
Yeah, I was his first call. Yeah, I was his first call. I can remember a voice message.
I say, Thurman, did I tell you that I had a boy?
Oh, yeah, did I remind you? Oh, I had a boy. His name is Hunter.
Yeah, Thurman, my birthday, I had a son, and then he called him back twice. You would have thought Jim won all 4 of those Super Bowls that he was in, and then at least 10 more.
Thought about Hunter wearing number 12. My nephew, Zach, wearing number 83. Passes from me to Andre, now it's from Hunter to Zach.
Now we had our son, we had already had a daughter, he just retired. Everything was perfect.
Just months after Jim retired last winter, he and his wife found out that their son Hunter has a fatal genetic disorder known as Krabbe's disease.
You are on overload and bombarded emotionally, mentally, even physically in a sense, when you're given dire news like that from a doctor about your son. That son that is going to be the next NFL superstar son. I knew that Jim wasn't going to save the day. No one was going to be able to help Hunter. And so what do you do with that? What do you do with that? And Jim and I dealt with it very differently.
Very simple. She seeked the Lord, I ran from the Lord. And as time went on, I continued to run from the Lord. Mad? Oh, without a doubt. Bitter? For sure. I get tired of people telling me that our son was here for a reason, that I was a chosen father because I could make a difference for others. I didn't want to hear that. I wanted to hear that I had a healthy son. I wanted to hear all those dreams I had of what I was going to do with my little boy, that I was going to be able to do. And the more my wife seeked the Lord, the more that I continued to get mad.
Jim, your old team, the Bills, 3-2 coming into today's game. And
Jim is doing his thing because he was doing color with NBC Sports. He was in different NFL cities doing the games, and I was completely consumed with Hunter's care. It was just a hit to our marriage like, you know, no other. And we had everything stacked against us but Hunter.
Pull your head back.
You can do it.
There we go.
Although we were told that he would not live to see his second birthday, here's this little boy struggling for his life. Are we going to give up on this when this child doesn't give up on anything?
The toughness he showed, the willingness to never give up. He's going through tough times, but that's what's keeping our family together.
2 years after Hunter was born, the Kellys had their second daughter, Cameron. And with his family by his side in 2002, Kelly was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, where the 5-year-old boy who never gained the ability of speech became the focus of one.
And it has been written throughout my career that toughness is my trademark. Well, the toughest person I've ever met in my life is my hero, my soldier, my son, Hunter. I love you, buddy.
I would say the most difficult moment in our journey was the day that Hunter passed. Jim ended up not getting to the hospital that Hunter was actually at until it was too late.
And first thing I did when I got out of the car, I went in through the doors and I saw 2 doctors there, and they said, "We're sorry, your son is gone." He passed away 5 minutes before I got there. Why did my son have to pass away while I was en route? Why is all these things happening to me, continue to happen to me? And that probably was the most difficult time of my life, and then having to drive back with my wife, who at the time we were not getting along great.
I know that we both thought that our marriage was over. I was convinced that we would get a divorce just because Hunter wasn't there to hold us together anymore. And so we started marriage counseling, and I know that that was a pivotal time in Jim's life where he had to come face to face with his grief, with choices that he had made that were not conducive for a marriage, and he had been unfaithful. And, you know, we share about this, we're very open about it because everybody makes mistakes in life, and you know, Jim manned up to everything.
I knew that me being Jim Kelly away from the house was not good, that I needed to, number one, seek the Lord, which I did, and thank God I did. Number 2 is I wanted to be able to walk through my front door and have my 2 daughters look at their daddy with respect. I wanted my wife to be treated like a wife and a mother, because all she's been through. And to one day see my son again. If I didn't change my life, I was going to be 0 for 3.
After Hunter was gone, Jim just hit a dark place, but came out of that stronger than I've ever seen him. Came out of that more of a man than I had ever seen. Came out of that time incredibly humble and compassionate in ways that he had never been before. And he's never been the same since.
I think that oftentimes we're defined by the losses in life rather than the wins, and how you handle a loss in life. And our family has handled loss immeasurably from the loss of my brother. And then everything my dad went through.
The great Buffalo Bills quarterback and NFL Hall of Famer Jim Kelly has announced he's been diagnosed with cancer of the upper jawbone.
That was really a shock. And there was a long while there where I think most of us were pessimistic. But darned if he didn't beat it.
His ability to want to get up off the floor, get off the deck, and stand again, that's the part that really came to the forefront when he was sick. I mean, he sees his girl sitting over there, and he's like, I can't leave here with them here.
He's a Hall of Fame quarterback for the Buffalo Bills. Really a good friend of mine, an amazing guy. Jim Kelly. Where's Jim? He's here someplace. Where's Jim? Stand up, Jim. Jim Kelly. He was tough. Interestingly, though, I said, I wonder what Jim's doing here. His daughter, Erin, crosses the goal line today with you. So, Erin, stand up. Where are you, Erin? Congratulations, Erin. Graduating from Liberty.
When you go through something like our family went through, and when you literally weren't sure if your dad was going to wake up the next day.
Erin Marie Kelly.
I'm so proud of you.
Graduating, knowing my dad got to hand me my diploma, like that was huge.
Huge milestone, being there for Erin's graduation and Cameron's graduation 2 days later.
I'm so proud of you.
Yeah.
I love you so much.
Love you too. I think he realizes what a gift it is to have children, to have two daughters that he gets to experience those things with, and the relationship he has
Even
with
though we
us.
aren't boys.
Even though we aren't boys.
I mean, we can still play football.
Yeah, we can still throw the
and all
football
that
for
stuff.
sure.
Yeah.
You know, going from blowing my shoulder out and then playing for the Buffalo Bills, which I did not want to do at the beginning, and then going to 4 Super Bowls in a row and not winning them, and then having a son born on my birthday, and then him being diagnosed. I can go on and on, all the ups and downs in my life, but the Lord was preparing me for what I'm doing now, and that's hopefully making a difference for others out there. All the way through. There you go, almost.
Marv always used to say adversity is an opportunity for heroism. And so their heroism, Jim and Jill, is that they raised funds from the tragedy of Hunter, and now they're doing the same thing with the tragedy of his illness.
Things happen to all of us. And I think seeing what Jim went through, losing, keep coming back, the never give up attitude gives people hope.
In the football chapter of his life, did we come up one game short? Yeah. But at the end of the day, when you look at the whole story, if it's not all about helping other people out and bringing people together and fighting battles together and going through victories and defeats together, if that's not being